The day after I said yes to my crush's confession, I traveled 10 years into the future. When I opened my eyes, a little girl with grape-like eyes called me Mom timidly. Later, I found our wedding photo in a dusty storage room. I never expected the groom wasn't my crush. It was him. I woke up 10 years in the future, lying on a strange bed. Stunned and confused, a small figure suddenly darted in from the door. I immediately lay back down and pretended to still be asleep. Footsteps drew near, then a soft little hand rested on my forehead. A childish voice rambled on about what she'd eaten and played with lately. Just as I was guessing my relationship to this child, her next words made me jolt awake. She said, "Mom, you've been sick for days. Why won't you wake up? You don't like Tang Tang, but I miss you so much. Please wake up, Mom. Mom." This kid called me Mom. I snapped my eyes open. By the bed stood an adorable little girl with big eyes and a small mouth, staring at me in shock. Before I could say anything, she scurried away. Oh my God. Last night I just said yes to my crush. Now I had a kid this big. After the child ran off, I quickly grabbed my phone and called my best friend Elowen. I had no idea what had happened to me in these 10 years. There were barely any messages on my phone. All my old friends had vanished from my contacts. The phone rang several times before Elowen picked up. "What do you want?" Her voice was cold, nothing like I'd ever heard. I scratched my cheek, flustered by her icy tone. When I didn't speak, Elowen grew anxious on the other end. "Eleanor Yao, say something. Didn't you say you never talk to me again?" Wow. What on earth had I done in these 10 years? I thought for a second and said, "Elowen, I know you. Being cold, but don't be. I just need to ask who's my husband." That was my biggest concern right now. Elowen fell silent for a moment. "Eleanor Yao, did you forget to take your meds today?" Ha. 10 years later, Elowen had learned to insult people subtly. "I'm serious. Are you out of your mind? Fine, stay home. I'm in line for a COVID test. I'll come over soon." Elowen sounded serious. Was I not time traveling, but actually sick? And what was a COVID test? Why did I have to line up for it? I just hung up when a woman who looked like a nanny knocked on the door, asking gently if I felt better and wanted something to eat. So my unknown husband was pretty wealthy. I nodded, and soon exquisite dishes were laid out in front of me. I never thought 10 years later I'd be living the life I'd always dreamed of. I tried casually asking about my husband. The nanny looked surprised, only saying he was on a business trip and wouldn't be back until next month. Good news. By the time he returned, I'd probably have adjusted. I picked up my chopsticks and started eating greedily. Honestly, everything was my favorite. Suddenly, I spotted the little girl peeking in from the doorway. Thinking this might be my daughter, my eyes lit up. I waved and said, "You there, come here." She flinched and walked timidly toward the bed. Why did she seem scared of me? Had I married a rich man and become a stepmother? I scratched my head and asked in as gentle a voice as I could. "Sweetie, what's your name? How old are you?" The little girl's chubby face filled with grievance, as if she couldn't understand why a mother wouldn't remember her child's name. "Mom, my name is Stella Jo. My nickname is Tang Tang. I'm 4.5. Oh. So I really hadn't ended up with my crush. I asked again, "Tang Tang, let's test you. What's your daddy's name?" "My daddy's name is Tang Tang." There you are. Time to go downstairs and study. Don't disturb Madam resting. The nanny who suddenly appeared cut Tang Tang off. "Madam, I'm sorry. I didn't watch her closely. I'll take her downstairs right now." The nanny pulled Tang Tang away nervously. I couldn't figure out what was going on, so I just nodded. Ever since I woke up, the nanny had acted strange, as if I were some kind of monster. Since I couldn't get my husband's name, I decided to look for clues myself. The bedroom was luxuriously decorated, but there were no wedding photos, no signs of another person living here. Was this the legendary husband who only sent money every month and never came home? When I walked out, I realized this was a two-story villa. Downstairs, Tang Ting sat quietly by the floor-to-ceiling window doing a puzzle. Sunlight spilled over her, her long eyelashes casting shadows. She looked so well-behaved she instantly melted my heart. I rushed over, startling her. "Honey, what are you playing?" "Mom will join you." Tang Tang's eyes widened. She immediately stood up stiffly and whispered, "Mom." I pulled her over and kissed her fair little cheek. She touched her face, looking surprised. From her reactions, I could guess that the me from 10 years probably didn't like this child very much. Luckily, Tang Tang was young and didn't hold grudges. After playing with her for a while, she happily started showing me her puzzle. "Honey, is this the only toy you have? Kids her age should have tons of toys." Tang Tang glanced at me cautiously and said, "You used to get mad because other toys were too noisy, Mom." "What?" "Oh no. The me from 10 years was definitely messed up." Just then, the doorbell rang. Elowen was here. When Elowen walked in, I barely recognized her. Was this still my tomboy best friend? She'd grown out her hair into big waves, and her features were delicately made up. I widened my eyes dramatically and said, "Beautiful lady, who are you?" Elowen rolled her eyes at me. Tang Tang, however, was familiar with her and ran straight over, calling her Auntie G. Elowen patted Tang Tang's head and said to me, "Let's go upstairs to talk." I quickly led her back to the bedroom and explained everything before she could speak. After listening, Elowen frowned and studied me, then asked a crucial question: "How do you know you time traveled and didn't just lose your memory?" I remember the last meal I had before traveling was tomato braised beef at the school cafeteria. It was so good. I remember I took an exam 2 days before. I even remember the questions. If I really lost my memory, I couldn't have kept details like that for 10 years. Elowen raised an eyebrow but still said nothing. She knew me like she knew herself. I pressed my lips together awkwardly and said, "Fine." The day before, I just said yes to Henry Zhang's confession. Elowen's mouth dropped. She let out a cold laugh. Then spilled everything that had happened in these 10 years. Turns out the me from 10 years really was sick bipolar disorder. And the cause was my ex-boyfriend Henry Jiang cheating on me. Elowen said Henry Jiang had acted nice to me on the surface, but had been emotionally manipulating me behind my back. By the time she noticed something was wrong, it was too late. Later, Henry Jiang framed Elowen for hitting on him. Confused, I ended our friendship completely. Then, at 27, Henry Jiang dumped me for my college roommate. I couldn't handle it and developed bipolar disorder. Holy crap, that's terrible. I held my forehead and sighed. This was just Eleanor Yao's tragic life story. So my husband now. That was what mattered most. Elowen looked at me, paused, then said, "Milo Zhou." "What?" "I never dreamed I'd marry Milo Zhou 10 years later." Elowen. Milo Zhou and I were practically childhood sweethearts. We lived in the same building as kids and went to the same school. Milo Zhou had always been the perfect kid everyone talked about. Good-looking, top student, kind-hearted. Helped old ladies cross the street, gave up seats to elders. Back then, the more my parents praised him, the more I disliked him. But as someone who cared a lot about looks, I couldn't help staring at him, often making him blush. When I grew out of the childish phase and started having crushes, I fancied him a little too. But so many girls liked him that I backed off. Even when he treated me differently, I thought it was just childhood friendship, especially after he went abroad. Now Elowen was telling me Milo Zhou had married me. It was as shocking as the Chinese national soccer team making the World Cup. A sudden thought hit me. 1. Tang Tang's 4.5. I broke up with Henry Jiang when I was 27. So Tang Tang is. Elowen looked at me awkwardly and said, we weren't talking back then. I only heard from others that Henry Jiang caught you and Milo Zhou in bed together. As for Tang Tang, honestly, I don't know. The information was too much. My brain was overloading. So I might have married Milo Zhou while pregnant with someone else's child. This thought made my head spin. No wonder the room only showed signs of me living there. Milo Zhou must despise me. If so, why had he agreed to marry me? That doesn't make sense, Elowen. Henry Jiang cheated, so how was I caught with Milo Zhou by him? Even if I would do something like that, Milo Zhou wasn't that kind of person. Elowen said, I don't know the details. It seems Henry Jiang broke up with you first, but you refused to let go. Then he caught you with Milo Zhou and turned it all against you. This plot was too crazy. I touched my face and said, I feel like I've lost half my brain cells. Right now. Elowen patted me on the shoulder. Face it, girl. After being gaslit, you turned into a mess. But Eleanor, honestly, whether you lost your memory or time traveled, I only have one thing to say, be nicer to Tang Tang. I can't meddle in your business with Milo Zhou, but this kid is so miserable. Milo Zhou is always busy with work, gone half the year. Before, you didn't even care about her. I teared up. Dad might be fake, but Mom is real. My sweet angel Tang Tang, from now on, you'll feel Mom's burning love. I just made my motherly to-do list. When Tang Tang started kindergarten a couple days later, turns out she'd been on summer break. Private kindergartens like hers usually didn't close for summer, but most kids came from wealthy families, and parents liked to take them traveling. Thinking of Tang Tang sitting alone downstairs with her puzzle made my chest ache. I decided I'd definitely take her out soon. At dinner that night, Tang Tang swung her little legs on her chair and told me about kindergarten. After a few days together, she wasn't so scared of me anymore. At bedtime, Tang Tang asked to sleep with me for the first time. She wore dinosaur-patterned pajamas and lay quietly beside me. Mommy, tell me a story. I took the book and made one up. Once upon a time, there was a snow prince. After the story, Tang Tang smiled and said, Tang Tang is the snow prince. Mommy is the princess. I'm gonna marry Mommy when I grow up. I teased her, but Mommy already has Daddy. You can't marry Mommy. To my surprise, Tang Tang's mood dropped immediately. Right. Since I'd arrived, Tang Tang had never mentioned Milo Zhou on her own. Did he treat her badly? I asked gently, don't you like Daddy? Tang Tang shook her head hard. I like Daddy, but... She looked at me cautiously, making it obvious I was the one who didn't like Milo Zhou. That couldn't be right. That couldn't be right. One day, after the nanny took Tang Tang to school, I started tidying the storage room. I unexpectedly found a wedding photo in the corner. In it, I looked numb, like a puppet without a soul. Next to me, Milo Zhou smiled, but his eyes held loneliness. It looked awful. I flipped it over, when something clattered to the floor, a small box hidden behind the frame. I opened it curiously. Inside were Tang Tang's birth certificate and old notes I'd passed Milo Zhou in class, plus a love letter written by 16-year-old Milo Zhou to 16-year-old Eleanor Yao. In that moment, I couldn't name what I felt. It was like biting into sour bitter melon. All I tasted was ache and regret. This love letter was 16 years late. I stared blankly for a long time, then put everything back as if nothing had happened. At the kindergarten gate, teachers led out groups of little kids. Kids somehow have a superpower. They spot their parents in the crowd instantly. Tang Tang's eyes lit up. When she saw me, she waddled over like a little duckling. She tilted her head, cheeks pink, and said, Thanks for picking me up, Mommy. My heart melted completely. I'll pick you up every day from now on, okay? Can you drop me off in the morning too? I shook my head firmly. Sorry, kiddo, mommy can't wake up that early. Just then, the little girl ran over and asked, Auntie, are you Stella Joe's mommy? I nodded. The girl looked me over and complimented, Auntie, you're so pretty. But why did you never pick Stella up before? All the kids in class said you don't like her. Before I could speak, Tang Tang squeezed my sleeve tightly and said angrily, You're lying. Mommy likes me. The girl looked back and forth between us, flustered. I quickly calmed both of them down. On the way home, Tang Tang seemed down, so I bought her lots of snacks and promised a big birthday gift. Tang Tang looked at me hopefully. Great. Daddy said he'll come home too. Oh no. I just found the love letter. I wasn't ready to face Milo Joe yet, and he was coming back. That night, following my mom's plan, I tried to bathe Tang Tang, but she refused firmly. She blinked her big eyes seriously. I have a wee-wee and you don't. And I'm almost 5, I can wash myself. I pinched her chubby hand. Really? Shampoo will hurt your eyes. And you're still 4.5. Tang Tang hesitated, then let me help, though she blushed the whole time, covering herself. Soon it was Tong Tong's birthday. She was more excited than ever. But the weather turned bad. Right after noon, it started pouring rain. Milo Joe was on an afternoon flight. I wasn't sure if he'd make it on time. I called Tang Tang over to open presents instead of staring out the window. I'd bought 5, hoping to make up for all the birthdays I missed. No matter how mature she was still a kid. She quickly got lost in the joy of new toys. Milo Joe walked in while Tang Tang and I were laughing, riding a kid's electric car. Mommy, my turn. You said just a little bit. Be good, sweetie. Let mommy play a little longer. We both looked toward the door at the sound of it opening. Rain lashed outside. Milo Joe stepped in from the storm, his suit mostly soaked. Tang Tang yelled Daddy, and ran over excitedly, but his eyes lifted straight to me. We stared at each other across the room, and my heart raced. Even before time traveling, I hadn't seen him in almost 2 years. And honestly, him in glasses was hitting all my weak spots. Handsome man, glasses, wetsuit. Who gets it? I snapped back to my senses and stammered a greeting. Milo Joe took off his wet coat and pulled me into a hug. I froze. Was this moving too fast? He whispered in my ear, Eleanor. I'm home. I held back from rubbing my ear and hugged him back. It's just a married couple thing, not taking advantage. He looked at me confused, but said nothing. By the time I lit the birthday candles, Milo Joe had changed and come downstairs. I scratched my cheek, too nervous to start the birthday song. Tang Tang looked back and forth between us sharply. Then made her wish loudly, I want to sleep with mommy and daddy tonight. I pressed my lips together. That's my girl. But Milo Joe glanced at me and told Tang Tang, wishes don't come true if you say them out loud. His response killed my mood. I'd forgotten Tang Tang might not even be his daughter. I never dragged things out. As soon as Tang Tang left, I said directly, Milo Joe, let's talk. His face darkened immediately. I'm tired. We can talk tomorrow. What? He hugged me when he walked in. Why was he acting cold now? I'm gonna unplug your water heater tonight when you shower. I was supposed to talk the next day, but Milo Joe avoided me from then on. Every morning when I woke up, he'd already left for work. What time do you even get up? Elowen eyed me suspiciously in the cafe. I touched my nose. 9 or 10 a.m. was totally normal. Elowen asked if I liked Milo Joe. I took a sip of coffee to hide my reaction. I'd said yes to Henry Jiang because he was sweet, thoughtful, and good-looking, but that feeling was nothing compared to how I felt about Milo. Elowen rolled her eyes. Honestly, this is Milo's fault. If he wasn't so damn reserved, that jerk never would have mattered. Yeah, fair. Better blame others than myself. I was about to keep ranting when my phone rang. 20 minutes later, I stood at the kindergarten gate. I'd been called in for a parent-teacher meeting. In the office, Tang Tang looked stubborn. Another kid was screaming at the top of his lungs. The teacher told me Tang Tang had pushed the boy first. His hand was scratched, and his parents were on their way. I asked Tang Tang why. She looked at me wronged, buried her face in my chest, and mumbled, "He called mommy names. And he wouldn't say sorry. Why would a random kid insult me?" Just then, the boy's parents rushed in, shouting, "Who dared hurt my son?" It was a couple. The man leered at me. The woman frowned immediately, picked up her son, and snapped, "You must be Stella Joe's mom. This isn't over. Who do you think you are, letting your kid bully mine?" I raised an eyebrow. Stella was wrong to push him, but your son insulted me first. The boy, now backed up, stopped crying. His eyes rolled, and he said, "I didn't. Stella's mom is pretty, but she's a homewrecker and a mistress." Little kids don't know words like that. They must have heard adults say it. "Sweetie, do you know naughty kids get their tongues bitten off by wolves at night?" The boy clamped his mouth shut. The woman sneered, "He's just a child. Why scare him? My husband's a general manager at a big company. What's wrong if our kid calls you names?" She glanced at me disdainfully. "Besides, the kid wasn't wrong. You were never around before. Who knows what kind of job you have?" I copied her tone, looked her over, and said, "No wonder the kid talks like that. He learns from the dog barking at home. Who are you calling a dog?" Before I could react, she lunged toward Tang Tang in my arms. "You little brat. Apologize to my son right now." I dodged sideways. The teacher, seeing the chaos, jumped in to pull us apart. As the scene spiraled, the woman took her chance and swung a slap at my face. Suddenly, an arm shot out and grabbed her wrist tightly. "Are you here to solve the problem, or to hit people?" Milo Joe frowned, his expression dark. The man who'd been standing by watching widened his eyes and stammered, "And Mr. Joe." He quickly dragged his wife over and bowed repeatedly, apologizing frantically. Milo Joe said calmly, "What a coincidence, Mr. Chen. I didn't expect to meet you here." Turned out this so-called general manager was a supplier Milo's company had been negotiating with. He had a history of messy personal behavior, and his wife ranted at home all the time, corrupting the kid. Milo Joe raised a hand to cut him off. "You didn't act like this earlier. You looked more like you were here for a show. If I hadn't stepped in, that slap would have landed on my wife. I hear Stella pushed your son. We'll take him to the hospital and cover all costs. But first, your family owes my wife and son an apology." The couple bowed and apologized profusely. I hated how they groveled in front of the kids, so I took Tang Tang and walked out. Once we got home, I planned to talk things through with Milo Joe. He immediately said, "I have company business. I need to head back." "Not so fast." On my signal, Tang Tang rushed over and clung to her dad's leg. Milo Joe frowned. "If this is about divorce, at least don't talk about it in front of Tang Tang." I rolled my eyes, grabbed him, and pulled him into the bedroom. I turned and pushed him against the door. He looked kind of cool saving me earlier. I tilted my head up and purred softly, "Honey." Milo Joe's eyebrows didn't move, but his face blushed bright red like a steamed crab. My own cheeks burned too. I cleared my throat and started explaining the time travel thing. After a long pause, he said, "It's hard to believe, but it makes sense. I noticed something different on Tong Tong's birthday. I thought your attitude had softened because..." His voice trailed off. "Because I wanted a divorce." "Yeah. So I was really awful to you before." And Aloan said we were caught in bed. What actually happened? And Tang Tang. Tang Tang is definitely my child. As for the past, It's probably better you don't remember. Honey, we should be honest with each other. After I said that, Milo Joe adjusted his glasses awkwardly and spilled everything. Turns out the word honey was like the magic password to this reserved guy. From Milo Joe's account, I pieced together the truth. Henry Jiang had framed me to dump me. It was a setup. Tang Tang really was Milo's child. We'd married because I was pregnant, but I'd blamed him for it, so we'd slept in separate rooms for years. Mr. Joe, it's cold. Time to bankrupt John's company. Milo Joe smiled amusedly. We called the police back then, but there was no evidence. And you denied it completely. In a way, Henry Jiang was a real piece of work. He basically scrambled my brains and turned me into a mess. What an embarrassing chapter of my life. Milo and I chatted for a long time in the room. From when I blackmailed him for snacks as kids, to the day I broke Tong Tong's toy car. How'd Tang Ting get her nickname? Milo Joe's gaze shifted, and he didn't answer right away. Remembering he was a straight-A student, I guessed, from the poem, Vast and Endless? His lips moved, and he said shyly, "It's Tang from Tom." Tom. Like Tom and Jerry. I glanced at Tom's pajamas draped over the chair and smiled. Who could resist a silly little cat? After that long talk, I was too shy to ask him to move back into the master bedroom. Love should take its time. He's my husband anyway. He's not going anywhere. As for Henry Jiang, before I could even get back at him, he sent out a class reunion invite in our college group. And specifically tagged me. I wanted to slap myself when I saw the message. Eleanor Yao, how could you have fallen for such garbage? If I'd known this would happen, I would have chased Milo Joe like crazy when we were young. I definitely planned to go to the reunion, but not alone. I told Milo everything. He asked what I wanted to do. I said, scope him out first, then settle old scores. I patted his shoulder. Mr. Joe, please back your wife up properly. Milo Joe raised an eyebrow and said nothing. On the day of the reunion, I planned to go with Milo and leave early. But the nanny was off, so we had to bring Tang Tang too. I figured many people knew about what happened between Henry and me. Afraid they'd talk recklessly, I told Milo to stay in the car with Tang Tang first. Sure enough, as soon as I showed up, classmates swarmed over, some sympathetic, some mocking. I looked at their familiar faces. Not long ago. They'd been bright and youthful, now they reeked of worldliness. From their gossip, I learned about Henry Jiang. My old roommate had stolen him with her family's Chaitian money from several apartments. He'd started his own company, which was supposedly doing well. Shortly after, Henry Jiang and his wife arrived. Looking at him now, I only felt relief. Receding hairline, bulging belly, puffy face. Not a trace left of the campus crush he'd once been. And he had the nerve to tag me. Eleanor, you're still as beautiful as ever after 5 years. Henry Jiang put on a show and came over to talk. I forced a smile, then slipped into the bathroom and called Milo to come get me. I lost all interest in showing him up. Milo chuckled on the phone and said he'd be right up. I just stepped out of the bathroom when a dark figure leaning against the wall startled me. The figure spoke. Eleanor, how have you been all these years? It was Henry Jiang. I thought someone had moved a wardrobe by the door. He tried to grab my hand when I didn't answer. I jumped back like I'd been burned. Don't come near me. I'm allergic to ugly. Henry Jiang's face twisted for a second, then smoothed out. Eleanor, are you still mad at me? I had no choice back then. I quickly waved him off, bowed 3 times, thanked him for not marrying me. It was the greatest favor ever, then hurried back to the party. I just sat down on the sofa when Henry followed. At that moment, the noisy room went quiet for a second. Then whispers broke out. Is he one of our classmates? What a handsome guy. Did we have someone like that in school? Wow, even Henry Jiang back then can't compare. I looked over. Milo Zhou had arrived. I sighed in relief and quickly linked my arm through his. Introducing my husband. Since Tang Ting was still waiting in the car, Milo and I stayed only briefly before leaving. Watching Henry and Milo standing together, looking like two different generations, I realized there was no such thing as an unresolved regret. As we walked downstairs, Milo teased me, canceling the big revenge plan. I leaned my head lightly on his shoulder, pretending to be tipsy, and whispered, "I already won." The summer night breeze was gentle. I suggested leaving the car and taking a walk as a family. Under the yellow streetlights, Tang Tang hopped along, singing at the top of her lungs, "Love you walking in the dark alone." I looked at Milo beside me, leaned close, and whispered something in his ear. His eyes lit up as he turned to me, the exact same expression as Tang Ting. I smiled and held his arm, pointing at a shared e-scooter ahead. "Honey, I'm tired. Let's ride that home." His soft, gentle expression instantly turned pained. He glanced at my dress and said, "Are you sure?" I blinked. Milo Zhou looked utterly helpless, took off his suit jacket, and tied it around my waist. Then, wearing just his dress shirt, he rode the e-scooter with Tang Ting in front and me behind. Tang Ting had never been on a scooter before, and the wind was filled with her happy laughter. But we hadn't gone even a kilometer when a traffic police officer stopped us. We were fined 20 yuan for carrying too many people on the scooter. Sigh. We ended up taking a taxi home. Much later, I saw Henry Jiang again. I was out with Tang Tang, wandering the streets for street food. When we were drawn to the smell of stinky tofu frying on a corner, I scanned the QR code to pay, only to find that the guy pushing the cart was Henry Jiang. He recognized me too, his face bitter, rambling on about how his company had tax problems, most clients had left, and his accountant had run off with the rest of his money. He'd shut down the company and was now deep in debt. At the end, this jerk actually tried to gaslight me again, but he no longer had the charm to pull it off. I held back my disgust and said, "Don't worry, I'll think of something to help you when I get home." Once I was far away, I immediately made a call. "Hello, I'd like to report someone operating without a business license here." I watched as the urban enforcement officers confiscated Henry Zhang's cart and actually shed a sad tear. What a waste of my stinky tofu. Taking Tang Tang to eat junk food again. Just as Tang Tang and I were hiding in the crowd watching the show, Milo Zhou showed up and caught us red-handed. I giggled. "We didn't eat anything. We just came to watch." Tang Tang echoed me quickly, Yeah. Mommy and I didn't have fried skewers, grilled cold noodles, or takoyaki." Smart kid, even from a young age. Milo Zhou looked at us helplessly and said, "Tell me what you want to eat from now on." "Street food isn't clean." I nodded while listing all the things I wanted. As the city lights lit up, the three of us walked slowly home together. After agreeing to her crush's confession, the heroine accidentally traveled 10 years into the future, only to find she had married her childhood sweetheart who had silently protected her, and had a lovely daughter. Once hurt by a scumbag, she became paranoid and ignored her family. Now she fully understands and cherishes those who truly love her. The story tells us not to be blinded by false tenderness, for real love lies in long-term company and protection. We should share each people around us in time, let go of the wrong ones, embrace happiness, treat our families kindly, and avoid regrets in life.